No one goes to Hank's for his spreadsheets. They go for a darn good pizza. Lately, though, the shop's been quiet, so Hank decides to bring back the $1 slice. He asks Copilot in Microsoft Excel to look at his sales and costs and help him see if he can afford it. Copilot shows Hank where the money's going and which little extras make the dollar slice work. Now Hank has a line out the door. Hank makes the pizza, Copilot handles the spreadsheets. Learn more at m365copilot.com/work.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. That chocolate crispy taste gonna make your day. And wherever you go, you'll hear the people say, give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
It's not about eating no sugar. It's about knowing which to choose and which to lose, because after all carbohydrates except for fiber turn into sugar in the body. We know when we raise blood sugar, we're raising insulin. And insulin, when it's chronically staying up here, creates inflammation.
Here's JJ Virgin, triple board certified nutrition and fitness expert and 4-time New York Times best-selling author. It's time to reignite wellness.
Hey, it's JJ, and it's all me today. We are going to be talking inflammation and how to dial it on down. This was a really popular blog post, so I figured I'd riff on it as a podcast. So before we dive into that, this is where I typically do a shout out to someone who's left a review over on iTunes, but I've been doing so many podcasts lately that I've run through all of them. So that means I have a big ask. If you would be so kind to rate and review the show, leave that review. While you're there, of course, subscribe. And I would love to shout you out. Oh, and make sure you leave your name. Write your name on in there. I'll shout you out and thank you for leaving a review. It means a bunch to all of us on Team JJ, because it literally takes a village, of course, to produce this show. I'm sitting here, lonely old me, in my little podcast studio in my house, and I now have a travel podcast studio because, wow, 3 podcasts a week is not for the faint of heart. Not since I travel all the time. I was like, I've got to do something so I don't spend my entire time at home when I am home podcasting. So I'm going to be doing it from the road too. And as you know, I often do it a lot on Instagram and Facebook, depending on what's going on and what my background looks like. So it would be super helpful. Leave a review. The whole team gets to see it. It's like we all got applause, and I really appreciate it. Alrighty, before we dive into inflammation and 10 ways you can dial it down, I want to share this with you. I'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back. Okay, so we're going to be talking about 10 ways that you can dial down inflammation. As usual, we'll be throwing in a bunch of cool stuff into the show notes. I'll put that at jjvirgin.com/dial, DIAL. And before we get into what you can do to reduce inflammation, first, I would love to talk about what exactly it is, because not all inflammation is bad inflammation. It's an important part of your immune system, but too much of it, right? You need to have some, because that's how your body seals off a wound as fast as possible and helps promote healing and prevent inflammation, right? So you need some. You want your body to be able to launch that inflammatory response, launch that great immune response, but not overdo it. So in fact, inflammation can get in the way of losing weight. Yikes, and cause weight loss resistance, in addition to that, a lot of other stuff. So again, we want to be able to launch an immune response through inflammation, but we don't want that to hang out longer than it should. And if you've been around my community for a while, you know I talk a lot about food intolerance, those foods that can trigger an immune response and then create inflammation. Specific foods that I talk about, my top 7 in the Virgin diet, and quite often that's gluten and dairy and high sugar impact foods. It's why I wrote literally the book Redefining the Way We Look at Sugar, so we know what to choose and which to lose. That's the high sugar impact diet. So what's the deal with inflammation? What's the issue with it? So it can cause, exacerbate, play a role in a whole host of stuff. Fibromyalgia, acne, insulin resistance, weight loss resistance, diabetes, arthritis, gas and bloating, type 2 diabetes, and a whole bunch more. And a lot of it, which this is super cool because it's going to be easy to fix, right? A lot of it is coming from your diet. So let's fix that, shall we? So I'm going to dive in. We're going to talk about 10 tips to reduce inflammation. And yes, they're not all going to be diet though. Like, spoiler alert, most of them are. With the very first one is making an oil change. Make an oil change. Now, another one is eating more fat. So we're going to put these two together right now. So these are going to be 1 and 2. So first thing I'm going to say is eat more fat. And second thing I'm going to say is make an oil change. So one of the most amazing things that you can do to start to lower inflammation is to eat more anti-inflammatory fats. You probably heard that the standard American diet's very high in pro-inflammatory fats, very different than our ancestors who used to eat a lot more omega-3s and a lot less omega-6s. And obviously they didn't eat any processed fats. They wouldn't have gotten, damaged and oxidized fats because they wouldn't have had the big manufacturing plants doing those things to our fats. So what we want to do, plus they ate a lot, they ate a higher fat, higher clean fat diet. So we want to look at, first of all, eating good, high quality fat, right? And depending on your genetic makeup, that's probably going to be somewhere 30+% of calories, 40+% of calories per day. Depending on what's going on with you, it might be 40% all the way up to 70% or 80%. But for the average person, it's probably more around 40%, 50% calories from fat. So where they come from obviously matters a heck of a lot. First of all, you're going to get fat in the animal protein you eat if you eat animal protein, and you are what you ate, right? So it's super important to make sure that you're eating animal protein and fish protein that's clean. And so for fish, that means wild fish, wild cold fish, because it's going to be fatty. And then one cool thing about wild cold fish, I'll bring up salmon in its pretty pink color. And if you've seen that farmed salmon, it's gray, ew, weird. When you look at wild salmon, it's that beautiful pink. And that beautiful pink is astaxanthin, and that is a fantastic antioxidant that also not only protects those omega-3s in the fish, but also helps lower inflammation as well. Double whammy. And then beyond that, we also want to look at game and, wild meats, grass-fed and grass-finished pastured animals that are eating their indigenous food. Because if you're eating factory farmed animals that are being fed GMO corn and soy that's got more pro-inflammatory fats, guess what you're getting? You guessed it. But when you're eating these wild, pastured fish and meats, you're getting way more omega-3s. And that's what we want to see more of here. We want to tip the scales back to where they used to be, which is more omega-3s here. So generally our diet nowadays is 16-1 pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. We want it to be about more like 4-1. That's what we used to do. All right. So then we're going to look at making that oil change. So one of the things is these processed oils, these vegetable oils can be super inflammatory, and also a lot of them sitting on the shelves in those plastic bottles that are leaching the crap from the plastic into the oil, because oil absorbs stuff and it's exposed to light, so it's oxidizing, is just a problem. So we want to really look at getting high quality oils that are cold pressed and as clean as possible. So I'm going to look at things like avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, walnut oil, sesame oil, coconut oil, and ghee as some of my favorite oils out there. Now, depending on what you're using it for, some of these things are better for cooking, some of them are better for sauteing, some of them are better not to heat. So we'll put a chart of what you should use where and when in the show notes. And again, the show notes will be at jjvirgin.com/dial, DIAL, for dial down your inflammation. There you go. Okay, so we covered 1 and 2, make an oil change and eat more of the right types of fat. Number 3, you probably knew I was going to say this one. Make a breakfast protein shake. So I love to start the day with the smoothie, because it's a great way to load up on some super clean anti-inflammatory foods. So things like unsweetened coconut milk, freshly ground flax seeds or chia seeds, which are rich in omega-3s, as you know, avocado, which not only has some monounsaturated fats, it also is rich in fiber. And then frozen berries, which give you a load of fiber, and deep green leafies, which have great antioxidants that can help lower inflammation as well. So super important to really look at how you have the trifecta there as well. So we've got some fiber, some healthy fats, some antioxidants, but basically, we've got healthy fats, protein, and fiber that keep blood sugar control going. You'll see why this is important in a moment. But also, I've loaded that with antioxidants that help reduce inflammation and healthy fats that help reduce inflammation. All righty. Next one, go low sugar impact. Now, of course, this all comes from my book, JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet, where I really talk about a different way to look at sugar. And it's not about eating no sugar. It's about knowing which to choose and which to lose. Because after all carbohydrates except for fiber turn into sugar in the body. We really want to make sugar, though, slowly from the foods we eat, not mainline it. So some of these super starchy foods and sweet foods can raise blood sugar. And we know when we raise blood sugar, we're raising insulin. And insulin, when it's chronically staying up here, creates inflammation. So that's one of the big key reasons you do not want to be doing this. But the other part of this is you don't want to go, okay, I'm just going to quit it all right now, because that just sets you up for failure. And I want to set you up for success. So one of the things that we do in the Sugar Impact Diet and on the Breakthrough Carb Intolerance program online is we first have you identify where the sugar is sneaking into your diet through the sneaky sugar impact inventory, and then also the impact it's having on your body through a sugar impact quiz. Then you taper. You trade high sugar impact foods for medium sugar impact foods, and you do that for a week or two while you're eating by the trifecta of protein, fat, and fiber to balance your blood sugar. Then, when you've got that dialed, then you go down to low sugar impact. And then at the end of doing that for 2 weeks, you go through a discovery process to really identify how you feel in different types, eating different types of sugar impact, like a low sugar impact diet versus a medium sugar impact diet, which works best for you. And that's really important. I'm very keen on us all being our own personal health detectives, right? And going through different diets to figure out, to discover what works for you and what doesn't, so you can pull this into your regular eating plan. All right, let's talk genetically modified organisms. Say no to GMOs. How do you like that? Say no to GMOs. Why? Well, because genetically modified organisms disrupt the natural gut flora and can then be a source of inflammation. So we're going to go organic, and more importantly, look for that non-GMO label. So our friends over there at Whole Foods have made a commitment to not have GMOs. Other cool thing that you can do is to support your local farmers. We should be eating seasonal, local, and organic, right? That then gets us into natural food rotation. And we're going to get more nutrients if we eat foods that haven't traveled long distances to be near to be over to us. So make friends with those local farmers and support them and see if you can become part of a collective where you all share the wealth of the diverse crops in your area. All right, next one, and this relates to the virgin diet. And this is that you want to address your hidden food intolerances. And what I discovered and why I wrote the Virgin Diet is I was working in doctors' offices, helping them administer food sensitivity testing. And people would walk in complaining about joint pain and headaches and fatigue and brain fog and gas and bloating and inability to lose weight, cravings, and all these things, none of them positive. We would do food sensitivity testing, and lo and behold, I started to notice that was the same foods showing up over and over and over. Now, gluten was a different type of test, and I found that showed up about 40% of the time. But the reason gluten was an issue is gluten can create food intolerances because it can create gut permeability or leaky gut. So what I did was, after testing and looking at lots of tests over a year plus, I started just pulling out the most common culprits, which are dairy and eggs, soy, corn, and peanuts, gluten, and then, of course, sugar and artificial sweeteners, because they really mess up your gut microbiome, and they can also make your small intestine more permeable. So this is a quickie way. We found that the average person was losing up to 7 pounds in the first week. And a lot of that is because they're losing the inflammation. And not only are they losing that weight quickly, the better thing is they're losing a lot of those symptoms. In fact, I had one person I'm thinking about now who had chronic tendinitis, had been going to a PT, physical therapist, for a year. No real relief, 1 week off gluten, no more ankle tendinitis. I mean, that is just crazy. I was shocked by that one. And again, I must say here, all right, the attorneys will be happy. Results not typical, but these are the types of things that we do here in the community. All sorts of different stories like this of people reducing pain and inflammation by figuring out their hidden food intolerances. And you may or may not be reacting to all those foods, but I'm willing to bet that you're probably reacting to a couple of them. And you go through, again, that discovery process to figure out which foods work for you and which foods don't, so you can personalize your eating plan to work for you for the long haul. Okay. Of course, I have to say sleep. Of course, of course, of course. In fact, if I had to pick just one thing overall for your health, it's sleep. And, you hear the recommendations of getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, but really, you want to get the right amount of sleep for you. And it's not just quantity. It's really important to track quality. This is where the sleep trackers, what you measure, of course, you can improve, are really important, because they can help you not just see how many hours of sleep, but also the quality of that sleep. And then you can look at ways you can improve it. One of the ways is my product Sleep Candy. I take that every night. CBD is another one, and we'll link to how to get CBD as well. So those are two of the things that, of course, can improve it. We'll link to my sleep podcast, sleep blogs in the show notes at jjvirgin.com/dial, because I have done loads and loads and loads on sleep, because it is, to me, one of the single most important things. Now, what's sleep got to do with inflammation? I am so glad you asked, because poor sleep raises stress hormones. When you raise stress hormones, it fuels inflammation. And speaking about stress, number 9, you really want to figure out what you need to do to manage your stress. And here's the thing, like, one person's stress management is another person's nightmare. Like, you might say, okay, I've heard yoga is great for stress management, but I don't like yoga. Well, that would not be good for you. So what you want to find is, first of all, look at how you can reduce sources of stress in your life. There might be some you can just get rid of, but quite often you can't get rid of them. It might be, say, your mother-in-law. Now, you might be able to minimize exposure, but you're still going to have a mother-in-law. So whatever it is, a boss, a mother-in-law, a financial situation, a lot of this is really how you respond to it. Of course, it's your perception. So a lot of things that you can do to reduce stress, we'll link to meditation with my girlfriend Emily Fletcher and tapping with my buddy Nick Ortner. And then, of course, we'll list in the our blog with stress techniques in it. I find hot bath, Epsom salts bath, and time with my little dog Daisy, just works like a charm, works every single time. It's kind of hard to be stressed out when you've got this ridiculously cute little dog. And I know my dog is kind of the cutest dog. Yours is probably second cutest. But it really is hard to be stressed when you got a dog wanting to get its belly rubbed. Pretty darn cute. All right. And finally, number 10, take some anti-inflammatory supplements. I'm going to list out 2 of my super favorites. To me, these are like nature's anti-inflammatories, nature's Advil. And the first one, of course, is omega-3s. And specifically fish oil, because you really want the EPA and DHA that you will not get from flax and chia, because it just takes too much to elongate from ALA all the way to EPA and DHA. So I am a big proponent of fish oil. Now, if you were eating clean, wild, fatty fish 4 to 5 times a week, hey, cool. Fantastic. A+. You may not need to take fish oil, especially if you've got a super clean diet and you're not eating a lot of pro-inflammatory fats. But I'm going to assume that's not the case. And so omega-3s are a really important thing to add to your diet. I have one I have made myself, Omega Ultra, which has lipase in it, a fat digestive enzyme to help you digest absorb it better, as well as some antioxidants to protect it from getting oxidized. So that's one thing to look at. And I would look at taking 2 grams of fish oil a day as a starting dose. All right, so that's one. And then the second one is curcumin. Now, curcuminoids are the active ingredients in turmeric that make it look orange. In fact, I did a bunch of stuff with curcumin turmeric yesterday, and now I've got pink or yellow fingernails, which was a little irritating. However, it reminds you of the power of this nutrient, and it's been used for thousands of years to help reduce inflammation. I take a product called curcumin chews that we make because they taste like candy and they don't have any sugar. Yum. And it's like a delicious way. I get my 100 milligrams a day. And curcumin, you're going to want to take about 100 to 300 milligrams a day. But those are 2 amazing things that you can do, fish oil and curcumin, to help lower your inflammation. All right. Time for a short break. And then I will be back to wrap this up and put a bow on it. So stay with me. All right. So welcome back. Just a little reminder, dialing down your inflammation is super important when it comes to not only feeling better, but losing weight and just being healthy in general. And when you lower inflammation, you can really impact a lot of different health concerns in just one hit. So super cool. I gave you a lot of tips to reduce inflammation, and most of them dietary. Here's my big recommendation. Please do not get overwhelmed, because when we get overwhelmed, we don't do anything, right? So what I want you to do instead with this information is go, okay, just heard these 10 things. I'm getting my show notes at jjvirgin.com/dial, DIAL. And I'm going to find the one that I'm not doing right now, and I'm going to do that one. And check them off, because I'm betting you of those 10, you're probably doing 5 or 6 of them. So let's look at the other ones and just start with one of those. Pick one, get out your diet journal, because every day you should be journaling, and just start there. And once that thing becomes a habit, then you can add the next one in. And really, when you think about it, these little hinges are what swing the big doors. You can make a massive shift in your health by just making those little 1% shifts over time, because we change over time, not overnight. Okie dokie. I will see you next time. Hey, I want to be able to shout you out at the beginning of the podcast. So pretty please go on over to iTunes, rate and review the show. Be sure to put your name on in there, and I look forward to shouting you out on the next one. Bye.